All right, it is Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. It's 9 a.m. and we will open the regular meeting. I call this meeting to order. We will begin with the invocation. We have a pastor who is on our video. And my apologies, Pastor. I don't have your name in my notes. Would you?
David Griffiths.
Wervis?
David
Griffiths.
David Griffiths.
Thank you, Pastor Griffiths. We appreciate you being here. So for those in attendance, if you could please stand for the invocation and also for Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, we just come to you in this incredible time in global history. And Lord, that decisions are being made on a global scale, a country scale, the state, and here we are with this community, Lord, making decisions. So today, as I pray over the mayor, the city council, those in leadership, Lord, you over 300 times in your word, you tell us, fear not. And so, Lord, it's not a time to be in fear, although it's all around us. Your word also tells us that if we ask for wisdom, you give it liberally. And so, Lord, my prayer is that those here in leadership in this room and around will seek your face, Lord, to get wisdom above their wisdom. They have wisdom and knowledge. But Lord, in a time like this, we definitely need your wisdom and your knowledge above and beyond anything that we can fathom or imagine. And so, Lord, out of your word again in Numbers, it say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. And so we pray that for our city, our community, our state, our country, and the globe. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
to the republic
to which God
stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you for being with us, Pastor.
I'm honored. Thank you for allowing us to do that.
All right, we will start again with the same, explanation of protocol for those people who are watching from home, either on Channel 7 or on YouTube. We are observing the best practices for social distancing, and therefore our meetings, instead of being filled with people, we are asking those who would like to comment on our on our YouTube page, and the clerk will read your comments when items come up. So we still want people to participate, even if we are distanced at this point. Just please do so on Facebook, and she will be able to read those comments, I think, in live time. So with that, Madam Clerk.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, April 14th, 2020.
Has every member had a chance to review the minutes? If so, is there any proposed amendments or changes or comments to the minutes? See none. With that, I make a motion that we accept the minutes as printed.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 16.
Is there discussion about the consent agenda items 1 through 16? Has every member had a chance to review the agenda items 1 through 16? Johnson looks like he's gonna do it, Johnson. Chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. I was looking for the right button. I wanted to pull item number. I dropped my other sheet. I'm sorry. Item number 13.
There's been a request to pull item number 13 on the consent agenda, and would you like to put it on the? Do you have in your motion? Are you making a motion to put this on another area of the agenda, or are you just pulling it for the next meeting?
No, we would just pull it from this, and then the other items would get approved, and then this would jump to the regular agenda.
Regular agenda, excellent. Apologies, wasn't sure the process was different for where I
No problem.
cut my teeth. All right, so there has been a request to pull the item. Madam Parliamentarian, that doesn't require a vote, does it?
Just needs a second and a motion. There's been a motion. It
There's
needs a
been a
second and a
motion
vote.
to pull consent item number
13.
13 from the consent agenda and place it on a regular agenda. I also second. Therefore, it's done. Other comments? Do we vote on it?
You need to vote. Have a
I-
vote.
Sorry, I misunderstood your instructions. So with that, is there any other comments on the motion? See none, members can cast their votes. With 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Other comments, questions, or changes to the consent agenda items or section? See none?
Mr. Mayor, normally we would take the item now. Our protocol in the past is we would take that item, number 13, and then Councilmember Johnson would ask his questions, and then we would act on that motion before we go to the regular business.
Okay, so I really appreciate the education with consent agenda items. It's very different under Masons, I think, than the Roberts we utilized right now. So with that, from my understanding from the instruction from the manager is we will take up item number 13 right now. Excellent. So with that, Madam Clerk.
Item 13, Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention 2020 Strategies to Support Children Exposed to Violence, Fiscal Year 2020, Competitive Solicitation.
Is there a member of staff who can go over item number 13? Oh, there we go.
Christian Corey and Officer Watson, who have been working on this grant, and we'll be happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor and City Council members.
Officer, would you just briefly review what the contents of the grant is and what the goals are and what it
Basically,
seeks to do?
what the intent of the grant is to start a unit comprised of 1 officer, 1 detective, 1 sergeant, and a juvenile district attorney targeting juveniles who are victims and suspects and currently are disproportionately present in violent crimes, specifically in areas of economic opportunity zones. But I'll defer to Lieutenant Corey so he can kind of give you facts and figures.
Welcome, Lieutenant.
Oh, thank you very much. Lieutenant Christian Corey. Currently been working on this grant with Officer Watson. The point of this grant is to support Officer Watson's current efforts in the community to identify children with high ACE scores. That's adverse childhood experiences, which leaves these kiddos at risk for later in life issues, from economic to criminal to actual health problems that they would experience later in life. He has modeled this program partially off of a very successful program out of Florida. And what we aim to do with the grant is to support him in his efforts from a perspective that we haven't taken before. And that is, we have a plethora of data of kids that come in contact with the criminal justice system, and a case may be charged, it may not be charged. But instead of just leaving those as case closures or clearances, we're actually going to put a conduit into a program that leads these kids into already existing wonderful programs, for everything from mentoring to tutoring programs to after-school engagement programs that keeps these kiddos busy and active, and with the goal of getting them into being productive citizens, going to post-secondary education, or otherwise finding gainful employment within our community. And I do have some numbers here, if you would like to hear some numbers as far as the qualified opportunity zones and high poverty areas, if the council wishes to hear some of those, just to see what's going on in our city around us with some of this crime data I had mentioned previously.
I would definitely like to hear that.
Okay, so when we break down the qualified opportunity zones and high poverty zones, which are just areas identified by the census as being economically depressed, where a lot of these kiddos live, they only make up 35% of our city. And all QOZs are in our high poverty areas, so that's how I broke it down. Kids in this area make up 72%, these are 2019 numbers, 72% of those involved in Part 1 crimes come from those areas. Kiddos that are witnesses and victims of those crimes make up 79% of kids involved in those crimes that are victims and witnesses. And then we talk about something that's indirect, like domestic violence. Kids who are witnessing domestic violence in these areas make up 79% of those reported cases that they're seeing in their homes. And something that's not directly related to crime, but other issues that show despair and whatnot, in these zones, kids in these areas are witnessing about 59% of suicides and attempted suicides within their homes. So that's kind of the bleak picture we have, and why we believe that taking this crime data and making a conduit into programs like Officer Watson's are going to be very effective in these areas. And it's a resource we have with all the great data we have, but now we just need to put it to a different type of use, a non-traditional use in this sense, and address these problems as they come to us. And it's just another avenue that I think is great for Officer Watson's program and us as a city moving forward.
Are there any other questions? Chair recognizes Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. I just want to find out, what do we expect the grant to be awarded? What's the timetable? A notification?
It would be later this year, and we'd be looking at a 2021, 2022, and 23 respectively for the grant covering those areas, and that'd be for a police sergeant to run and monitor the grant and program, a police detective to start using that crime data and funneling it in, and then also partnering with the Sedgwick County District Attorney's Office to overcome those legal hurdles if a kid was already in the system, and work things from the probation angle, holding offenders accountable, but giving them a different avenue for community service or whatever the circumstances may be. But we need a partner there to overcome those legal hurdles as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember
Did that
Bluebold.
answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Is there any follow-up?
Sorry.
Seeing none. Councilmember Bluebold.
I just want to make a comment. I wanted to thank Officer Watson for everything you've done in the community. I appreciate what you're doing out there to make a difference. Thank you very much, Officer.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for the conferees? Any more discussion of the consent agenda item 13 that is now on the regular agenda? See none. With that, the chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Officer Watson and you all are doing great work. I had a great meeting with Officer Watson about this potential project, so it's definitely something I support and want to see happen. I think it can do great things in our community. With that, I would move that we approve item number 13.
Second.
The item has been, the item for approval, motion for approval for item 13 has been seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Back on the original order of the agenda. Point of clarification, is it still consent agenda items 1 through 16 minus 13, or is it consent agenda items 1 through 15 now?
The first way, 1 through 16 minus item 13.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So are there any more discussion on consent agenda items 1 through 16 with the exception of 13? See none, then I make the motion to accept consent agenda items 1 through 16 as printed with the exception of 13.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. The clerk will open the roll. Members cast their votes. With the result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Report of Board of Bids and Contracts dated April 20th, 2020.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Hannah Ling, Department of Finance, here to present the April 20th Board of Bids recommendations. First engineering bid we have is 2020 OP3 Joint and Crack Ceiling Phase 3. Recommendation is Circle C Paving and Construction for $275,250. First purchasing bid we have is Old Town Plaza Site Improvements and ADA Upgrades. Recommendation is Specialty Contractors for $148,600. Grounds Maintenance for Production and Pumping. Recommendation is Choice Industries for $59,325. Sand, gravel, limestone, topsoil, and miscellaneous materials. Recommendation is to defer to April 27th Board of Bids. Liquid oxygen, Lambton Welding Supply for under 90% of 0.00339 cubic feet, between 99 to 99.5%, 0.00339 per cubic feet. The current request for proposals that we have open with the City of Wichita. This is the city's purchasing e-procurement website. And with that, staff recommends approval of the bid awards as recommended. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions on the item? See none. With that, I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to receive and file the report, approve the contracts, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. With the result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass unanimously. Madam Clerk.
Resolution amending a public hearing date for a project plan tax increment financing for the Project Area 3B plan.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Scott Rigby, City Manager's Office. Back on March 17, 2020, the City Council adopted a resolution setting a public hearing for April 21st, 2024. TIF Project Area 3B. This is the area that includes Chester A. Lewis Park and renovations that would occur to that. Since that time, both parties have been working to finish up the final details. We just have a few more final details to finish out the remainder of this week. So therefore, both parties are requesting this amending resolution to provide more time by setting a new public hearing for May 5th, 2020. So therefore, staff recommends that City Council adopt the amending resolution setting a public hearing for May 5th at this time.
Is there discussion on the item? See none. With that, the chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we take staff's recommended action.
The motion has been made, and I will second. Motion has been made and seconded. If no further discussion, clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. The result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Northwest Wichita Water Facility Project Amendment to Agreement.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Alan King, Director of Public Works and Utilities. We have an amendment for the contract related to the new Northwest Water Treatment Plant before you today for your consideration. Starting with a little bit of the background, back in early last year, February of 2019, Council approved the Phase 1 Design Build Agreement with the Wichita Water Partners, which started the project. And then City Council also approved at that meeting submission of an EPA WIFIA application for funding. Later in the year, at the end of the year, December 3rd, 2019, City Council approved Phase 2 amendment to the Wichita Water Partners, which was the actual start of the project, start of construction, which is underway right now. City Council also approved submission of a KDHE State Revolving Fund application funding. For the amendment under consideration today, there are two items affecting the agreement. One is the insurance requirements that are set forth in the contract with Wichita Water Partners. First, I want to note that they had been fully met as far as the city was concerned. We required that they provide us with certain levels of insurance and certificates of insurance, naming the city as additional insured under the policy, as we started to negotiate the contract, the loan agreement with EPA and having conversations with KDHE on the state revolving fund, it became apparent to us that we had to also include some provisions for additional insured for both EPA and KDHE, and that it also we are required to allow EPA to gain access to actually review the detailed liability policies themselves. So this amendment accomplishes those things, and it has no effect on either the total price of the project or its schedule. So really, when you look at the details of it, there's two paragraphs. We're adding a paragraph that says that they should make available for review to EPA, the WIFIA credit provider, copies of the liability insurance. And then we added a couple of subparagraphs, which were adding KDHE and EPA respectively as additional insured. So recommendations by staff is that we approve the amendment and authorize the necessary signatures, and I'll stand for any questions, sir.
First question, this was presented as a technical amendment, and I just want to ask, does this change the overall fiscal note of the project?
No, Mr. Mayor, no, sir, it does not. There is no effect on either the cost, the fiscal aspect of this project, or the schedule. So it's really just a matter of making sure that we meet the requirements of EPA and SRF on the actual loan applications.
Excellent. Other questions on the proposal? See none, I will make a motion to take staff's recommended action.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. If there's no further discussion, clerk will open a roll. Members will cast their votes. The result is 7 yeas to 0 nays. The motion does pass. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Wichita Employees Retirement and Police and Fire Retirement Systems Actuarial Valuation Reports as of December 31st, 2019.
Morning, Mayor, members of the City Council.
Morning.
Mark Manning with the Department of Finance. I'm here today to present the 2019 actuarial valuation of the city's two pension systems. The actuarial valuation is important for a number of reasons. One is it's required by GASB 67 and 68 in our financial reporting. It's also important because it provides a snapshot of our pension systems that is important for our rating agencies when they issue ratings for our city bonds. And finally, it sets the contribution rate for the city pension plans. So today, we have our consultant, Chiron, available to present the details of the actuarial report. So I'd like to introduce them. We have with us today Jake Lebrowski, Janet Crana, and they are actuaries with the firm of Chiron, and they will be handling the rest of the presentation.
Good morning, thank you. And this is Mike Noble, also with Chiron. And we do appreciate the opportunity to present to you today. If we could go to the first slide. We just want to quickly show a visual kind of the actual valuation process. The basic idea with a pension fund is that you promise to pay benefits for life when someone retires. And so we look at this as kind of, you can think of it as a water tank with benefits coming out of that tank. And those benefits are promised and set up by the plan provisions. And then what we do in actual evaluation, what you do as a plan sponsor, is you pre-fund those benefits. And so you set aside assets so they'll pay those benefits out into perpetuity, or as long as everyone that currently is working is alive. And in this picture, you can see that kind of as the water, the green area. That's the assets that are available to pay out that future stream of money going out. The way that money gets in there is from employer contributions and employee contributions, as you're aware, and those are can be adjusted. And then investment earnings on the assets that you have are there as well. And then what we do every year as actuaries is we essentially determine the size of that tank. How much would it take to fully fund the plan forever with the current benefits that are promised and what people have earned to date? And so one thing that we do with that is we determine how much the unfunded liability is. What's that gap between the top of the tank and the level of the assets right now, the level of that water. And then that adjusts how quickly we need to be putting money into the pension plan, or if you think of it as saying, what do you turn that employer contribution, turn that dial to either add or turn down every year. And so if we go to the second slide here, if we look at today's results, the actuarial value of assets funded ratio, and that's the smoothed assets that we use. So we smooth out fluctuations on a year-to-year basis. For WERS, that remained level at 91%. So still 91% funded plan, and increased slightly for the police and fire retirement system from 91% to 92%. And then the unfunded actuarial liability, which is just that gap, it increased slightly for WERS as both assets and liabilities went up, and decreased a little bit by $5 million for the police and fire system. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jake, and he's going to go through the specific results. We do want to answer questions along the way, so if you do have any questions, you can stop and ask those as we go through, or we'll take questions at the end as well. Thank you. Jake?
Thanks, Mike. If we go to the next slide, this shows the contribution rates. So this valuation sets the contribution rates for 2021. The table shows the components of the city's contribution rate, which is comprised of the normal cost rate, that's the value of benefits being earned during the year, as well as the unfunded liability contribution rate. That's the contribution used to offset the unfunded liability. For the employees plan, the total city contribution rate is 13.9%. And for the police and fire plan, it is 22.6%. We go to the next slide. This shows a reconciliation of the contribution rates from last year's valuation to this year's valuation. So last year's contribution rate for the employees plan was 13.7. That's what's being paid currently in 2020. The investments had a gain that reduced the contribution rate by 0.1%. There was a liability gain demographic experience that reduced the contribution rate for the employees plan by 0.5%. And then other factors, including the impact of the change in actuary, increased the contribution rate by 0.8%, resulting in the 13.9% contribution rate for the employees plan. Police and fire plan is on the right. Similar impact, a little more impact on investment gains. There was no demographic gain or loss, so that didn't have any impact. And the other bucket was a 1% increase in the contribution, resulting in the 22.6% contribution rate. We can go to the next slide. This shows a 10-year history of the contribution rates. The employees plan is in blue and the police and fire plan is in yellow. You can see the contribution rates have been fairly steady over the last 10 years, some ups and downs, but that just kind of gives you a feel for where they've been. If you go to the next page. This is a 10-year history of the funded ratios. Again, the employees plan is in blue and the police and fire plan is in yellow. The funded ratios have ranged between 91 and 96% over the last 10 years. They've been remarkably stable. Normally we see more volatility here, so this is really good, and they're above 90% funded in all years. So the plans are in really good shape. and respectively, they're 91 and 92% funded in 2019. So it's very good news. This page shows a 10-year history comparing the Wichita retirement systems to the plans in the public plan database. There's about 200 plans in this database, and the bars for each year show the distribution of funded ratios of plans. The light blue bar at top is the 75th to 95th percentile of plans. The employees plan is the black boxes, and the police and fire plan are the yellow diamonds. So you can see that both systems have been generally within the top 25% of public pension plans in the country. Again, the plans are pretty well situated. If you go to the next page. The valuation that we just presented is based on one set of assumptions, and it's a snapshot in time. It was as of the end of 2019. And so it doesn't reflect anything that's happened since the end of the year. It doesn't have any impact of the global pandemic going on right now. And so the assumption assumes, one of the major assumptions is that the systems will earn 7.5% investment returns on their assets each and every year in the future. We know that that's not necessarily going to happen, and future experience could possibly be significantly different. The risks of that are shown, we show in section 2 of the evaluation reports more information, but we're required to disclose the primary risks for the retirement systems. They're listed below, but if you want more information, section 2 of the evaluation reports is a great source. We show in that section a projection of the contribution rates going forward under a couple different investment return scenarios. And if there's any other information you all would like, we'd be more than happy to work with you and provide whatever information you would like to see.
Okay, with that, the recommended action is to receive and file the actuarial reports and to approve the contribution rates for 2021. I'd like to thank our consulting firm at Chiron for their work on this. They did an excellent job, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions about the item? See no questions. Therefore, I'll make the motion to accept the recommended action as staff. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. If there's no comments on the motion, then clerk will open a roll. Members cast a vote. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Madam Clerk.
ESG funding allocation for United Way of the Plains, Inc., COVID-19 Hotel Motel Isolation Program.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
Good
I'm
morning.
Sally Stang with the Housing and Community Services Department. The item I have for your consideration today is an ESG funding agreement with United Way of the Plains for motel vouchers for the homeless that have been exposed to or are being tested for COVID-19. The city of Wichita is an entitlement city recognized by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and therefore receives entitlement funding by formula for community development activities. The specific entitlement funding received is a Community Development Block Grant Program, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Emergency Solutions Grant. The Emergency Solutions Grant Program provides funding to improve and operate homeless shelters, rapidly rehouse families and individuals experiencing homelessness, and prevent families and individuals from becoming homeless. In addition to our annual funding allocation of $238,128, the city is receiving $850,376 in additional Emergency Solutions Grant funding authorized by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, the CARES Act. Emergency Solutions Grant funding authorized under the CARES Act must be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus pandemic among individuals and families who are homeless, and to support additional homeless assistance and homelessness prevention activities to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19. United Way of the Plains has requested ESG funding in the amount of $300,510
to assist homeless individuals undergoing testing for COVID-19 or individuals testing positive for COVID-19 to self-isolate in local hotel or motel rooms. This funding is on a reimbursement basis. The Kansas Department of Health and Environment estimates that up to 30% of people in Sedgwick County may be infected with COVID-19. Statistics from California and Washington indicate the incidence of COVID-19 among the homeless population is double that of the general public. With those statistics, the prevalence of COVID-19 among the 530 individuals in the Wichita-Sedgwick County area in congregate shelters or those that are unsheltered is expected to range from 159 to 318 individuals. The average cost of a hotel or motel room is estimated to be $100 per day. That's the General Services Administration per diem rate, although we're working with United Way to negotiate reduced rates at various hotels, motels. Funding provided to the United Way, this funding amount should be sufficient to provide 159 individuals awaiting testing with a stay of an average period of 4 days, and those testing positive a stay of an average period of 14 days. Hotels or motel rooms utilized are to be approved by the Sedgwick County Health Department to ensure that they are structured in a way to reduce transmission to other guests at the hotel, including evaluation of the ventilation systems. There is no impact to the general fund with this funding agreement. We'll be utilizing the funds through the CARES Act to cover all expenses related to this activity. It's recommended that the City Council approve the ESG funding allocation in the amount of $300,510 and authorize the necessary signatures. And I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Questions on the item? Vice Mayor Clayco.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question. I just have a comment to Sally. I just want to say thank you for coordinating this with a continuum of care. I've sat in on those calls and recognized the real effort that's going on in this community to help one of our most vulnerable populations. So I think this money would be well spent, at least, as you said, on a reimbursement basis as needed. So thank you very much, Sally, for what you and your staff are doing.
Other comments or questions on the item? If not, given the work that the Vice Mayor has done with this community, I would relinquish the floor to her for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that the City Council approve the ESG funding allocation in the amount of $300,510 and authorize the necessary signatures.
I would second. Motion has been made and seconded. There's no discussion on the motion. Clerk will open the rolls and members can cast their votes.
Mine says motion to adjourn.
Yeah, it does. I have
not.
to fix that, but I'm not seeing the, Mayor, I'm sorry, on the second, I think I just messed up here. Here we go.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Clendenin, would you cast your vote, please? Thank you.
With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Consideration of deputy to the mayor.
All right, so this is something I had on the agenda and I wanted to talk about it, give some background, give some rationale, and some explanation of what I'm trying to do. I know this is new to a lot of people. When I first came up with this role, the concept of the role actually goes back to at least 30 years, but I'm trying to modernize that, and I want to extend, before I get started, a thank you to the council members who have helped me with this process of trying to create a position that will not only serve the current council, but maybe be a template for future councils. So I'm just going to go over the facts, and then the rationale, and then the position, and then we'll open up to comments and questions. Overall, the facts are that the executive assistant to the mayor and city council was the established position before the previous mayor changed his position to communications and event planner. The my research has shown that this has set a 12-year precedence of employing someone from outside City Hall who assists with the mayor and in a position like this or its equivalence position, which I believe legal has confirmed goes back well before. The email from legal states some version of this position existed for many years before Mayor Brewer was elected, going back to at least, and then it's an employee's name. So what I'm trying to do is, while we are changing with our new communications director and now the position of communications and event planner, what I want to do is reinstate the previous position, but update it to make it more, to make it a position that goes beyond just, I think, assistance work, but professionalizes it to also do policy research, community outreach, and some of the other demands I think the public was looking for. So some of the criticism I've gotten is about, well, we are in a hardship, and we might have some financial hardships moving forward. And I want to just discuss briefly that in times of crisis, the core staff, including the assistant to the mayor and the council, have always remained in place. During the 2008 financial crisis, the executive assistant to the mayor and council was not furloughed or laid off. Today, the majority of our furloughed employees correlate with the limited functions of local government. However, the office of the mayor and city council must continue. The manager's office must also continue, and thus the manager's assistant has not been furloughed. As we tackle these problems, I think it's important that we do so at full strength. So also just in an email to the council from the manager titled Temporary Budget Actions dated March 20th, 2020, I responded with that the council and mayor staff as essential during these times with the discussion of a hiring freeze, and I had no response in opposition to this. Therefore, I believe that the expectation was we can move forward with staff that is essential. So one of the things people want to know is, with the current position and the idea of a resorting back to a similar position that's been in place for about at least 20 years, what's the difference? Why can't you just utilize what you already have? So I compared the job descriptions. So when comparing the job descriptions of the current position of communications and events management or coordinator with a past executive assistant to the mayor and council, the job descriptions, there are major areas of responsibility left out. There are some areas that do overlap, of course, but some of the uniquely different positions found in a comparison of the job descriptions are preparation of letters for grants, community achievements and delegation visas, oversight of sister cities programs, Mayor's Youth Council and various other mayor's councils, organization of State of the State event, and Wichita River Fest involvement, taking notes in minutes and meetings. Those are found in the previous executive assistant to the mayor and city council that aren't found in the current communications and special events management or coordinator position that is in place. Other missing items that I wanted to utilize for this position is policy research, assistance in interfacing with department heads for the purpose of gaining information, community leaders, stakeholders, and community organizations for the purpose of coordinating, engaging in efforts to increase transparency and accountability. So that is the vision for this position, and I wanted to go over the rationale and then also the job description and the structure and procedures. As you guys, or as the council probably knows and the public knows, this position in the last 12 years has never come up for a vote like this. So I think that before, the planning of this position has been done in other means, so it's important that for the sake of transparency, I present not only to yourself, but also to those watching what is the reasoning behind this. So the rationale is the unprecedented times of crisis, both economically and in public health, requires professional assistance within the mayor's office to better serve the community, interface with city department heads, and align with council members on shared objectives. This position brings the office of mayor to a similar professional standing of every other mayor in comparable cities who enjoy the assistance of a chief of staff or the equivalent. Wichita is only one of 2 top 50 cities in which the mayor does not have a chief of staff, or the equivalent. Public expectation for this position of mayor has evolved since to expect more community outreach, public accessibility, and to maintain a presence throughout the city. This position gives the mayor the resources needed to provide a similar level of public outreach as current Wichita City Council members enjoy through the use of their full-time community outreach employee, resulting in increased accountability and transparency. So the job description is brief, and of course, all this is open to amendments. I have worked with many council, or at least 3 council members taking feedback on this, but I'm happy to make adjustments as needed. The deputy to the mayor for the job description will assist the mayor in policy research, community outreach, special projects, communications, and other tasks as directed. This person will work with the mayor to interface with city department heads, city council members, community leaders, stakeholders, community organizations, and the general public in order to coordinate and provide superior customer service to our taxpayers. This person will assist members of the council when needed. And I do want to just chime in real quick about what's with the title. I think one of the interesting things is when on my social media, when I get questions about this, people ask deputy of the mayor, that sounds kind of strange. Chief of staff sounds more like what mayors get, which is kind of funny to me, someone who's been working on this for about 4 months now, because the pushback to the idea of a chief of staff was, hey, you're the mayor, you don't control staff. And what I wanted to do is to balance a title that would attract someone at the graduate level, someone who won't see this as a entrance level position, such as just assistant would. So to do that, I wanted to figure out, okay, well, what's other titles that people have utilized so I can attract the best talent to help us out. And some of those titles were deputy. That's something I found over in some of the department heads in other cities, which does not entail that that person is in charge of other staff. To be honest, we could call this thing anything you guys want. We can call this the mayor's good mood coach for all I care. I just need someone who can fulfill these duties so I can make sure that the taxpayers get what they expect. But that's the difference with the title, and of course, that is not something that can't be changed. We can actually change it back to executive assistant to the mayor and council. So the contract structure and procedure. So this is an interesting thing that I found in my research is that for the last 12 years, every person who had this position or the equivalent actually worked for the mayor before the mayor was in office, and actually can be found in their campaign structure somewhere. And then I think most reasonable people would assume that that for people coming from the outside to come into this position through just basic merit process, the mayor might have had a bit of an influence in that. So I wanted to, in the hopes of transparency, create a structure in which was open and transparent that gave both that balance to not only the mayor but also and the council, but also to the administrative side. So one of the other things I want to do is make sure that this position doesn't have to be absorbed through the organization moving forward. So if the organization, which is the city, decides to keep this position or the person once the mayor, who is typically term limited, leaves, then typically they are term limited. Once they leave, then they would have the choice to do that, but they wouldn't be forced to do that. So the contracted employee of the city who serves the mayor for the same 4-year term, the position will expire once the mayor terms end and may be renewed at that time. So that's why it was set up as a separate contract, so that, like I said, they don't have to be absorbed into the system, and the next mayor doesn't have to would have the freedom to pick someone who would complement their skill set, would pick someone who's right for the mood of the city at that time. So the employee falls into the same city policy for conduct and expectations as other employees. Listening to the feedback from the council, I think there was concern about this. There was also concern for what if a mayor comes in who is overly political and then hires someone to be in the office who's also political? Would that put us at risk? So listening to that feedback, I actually put in here that this is a non-political position that prevents the participation in campaign activities as defined by KSA 2541 43H. And the reasoning for that was that it's a state statute. So there can't really be much manipulation of the state statute through the council. It's already set. So, or through the mayor's interpretation of it. It's there for, I think, better oversight. It was requested that the employee, if this position moves forward, would sign a non-disclosure agreement, which would pretty much mean that if there's policy discussion in the in the council office, that that discussion won't get out and used against those people who have that discussion. I think that's fine. That's somewhat standard practice. Employee will earn the same benefit package, including but not limited to healthcare insurance. Like I said, I want to attract someone who is graduate level, who will see this as more than just a an entry level position. I think that we need a quality person. And a position will be advertised through the HR website. That was very important because I don't want this to be an appointment. We are proudly in a system of merit, not in a spoil system, even though every chief of staff in every state office in Kansas, and actually in the majority of comparable cities, the mayor just gets to unilaterally appoint a chief of staff. Most people know that's common practice. Given the history and the culture of our building here at City Hall, I wanted to work out a structure where that doesn't happen behind closed doors, where the structure is actually out in the front, and this is really what I came up with, which is open to obviously to amendments and changes. And like I said, I'd like to thank the people who did help me with this. The selection committee will consist of the mayor and a staff member appointed by the city manager. The two-member committee will review applicants, conduct interviews, and determine who advances. If the two-person committee cannot agree on a candidate within 1 week of the interviews, a third member of the city council or the Office of Community Service Supervisor may be appointed to the committee by the mayor to evaluate and determine the best candidate. So the purpose with this is to make sure that if the mayor does have a hand in the selection of the next person who would be the assistant of them, it's not done behind closed doors. As mentioned, for the last 12 years, everybody who has had this position or the position that replaced this position has had ties to working with the mayor before the mayor was elected and before they came into this position. And I wanted to make sure that that precedence would have a process to go through. The idea of having someone appointed by the manager and not just the manager is so that the manager can be free of any type of political pressure from the council if the mayor happens to fall in the minority of those in the council. It's important too that whoever works with the mayor is someone who the mayor can trust. So that's why I think the mayor should be in a room with that. If not, then we could see some misguided actions in the future if a council could just appoint. Let's say I lose the next election, but the council likes me, so they appoint me or push me to be the next mayor's assistant. Like, we wouldn't want a situation like that. We want to make sure the mayor would actually have somewhat of a say, but an equal say to the administration as well. So this allows for proper administrative verification of the employee while also protecting the city manager from political pressures that may arise from the council. The vetting part is very important too, where a future mayor can't just appoint someone who is unqualified for this position or someone who doesn't meet the standards of being hired by the city. Performance evaluations and investigations of potential violations of the city employee policy or potential violations of the non-political activities as defined by KSA 2541-43 will be conducted by two members of the selection committee. If the two-member committee cannot come to an agreement, the city manager or their designee will serve as a tie-breaking member. So when it comes to any type of discipline or program evaluations or anything like that, I want this to be heavy on the administration side because we are a professional government. We want to make sure that someone can't just kind of run amok as long as they're in good with the mayor, that there is accountability, and that accountability can come from our established process. So determination of the outcomes of the two-member committee may be challenged by the city manager. So even if there isn't even if there isn't a disagreement between the two-member committee, the city manager can still challenge it. At which point the selection committee will reconvene with an additional council member appointed by the mayor and with the city manager or his or her designee, to explore the matter further. So again, the structure is set up to make it so it's transparent and that not just anyone can be put into the position by appointment, even though that has been the standard practice of other cities and again of pretty much every governmental agency at the state level. I think that the goal is to strike that balance. So, moving forward, I'm open to suggestions with this. I want to just replace the current, to resort back to the current position, but with a bit of an updated part of that to what it was before the previous mayor changed that position, particularly since that position is becoming more and more a communications position under the director of the communications department and less under that of City Hall. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. There are no questions. I make a motion.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, I have quite a few comments. I'm not sure how you want me to.
Councilmember Bluebog actually chimed in first, and then we'll go to the comments.
Okay.
Do we have an established salary for this position?
That's a good question. So the established salary for the previous positions has been, for the current role, it's printed as $39,709 to $70,604. For the current position that replaced the previous position was $41,319 to $73,465. So my guess would be the salary would fall somewhat into that range. That would be something determined by the by staff so that they can make it appropriate with other positions that it's equivalent to within our system.
Thank you.
But I will have no say in that.
Thanks.
Madam Clerk.
Mayor, I have about 17 or 18 comments, but it's from about 4 or 5 different individuals. So do you want me to just read?
Just read for the 4 or 5 individuals, pick out, I guess, which comments you think are appropriate to read or add most to the discussion.
I'm sorry, I would recommend that all comments be read in their entirety.
Okay, then, sorry, I wasn't sure if the question was.
Okay, the first one's from Amy Lyon. It's, please explain why this role is to interface with city manager and council members.
As mentioned in my testimony, it's important that we collaborate, not just with the administrative side of our government, but also with council members to make sure it's not duplication of efforts, nor a miscommunications of goals on efforts that are already established.
Bill Stout says none of you should be paid as long as you will not let the people of Wichita, from whom your income is derived, return to work. He also said hiring someone to assist the mayor while not allowing the people of Wichita to return to work is tyranny.
I understand there's a lot of frustration about the current order from the governor to keep people safe and healthy by staying in. We hope to get the economy open back up when it is safe. And in my opening statement about the need at this time for professionalization of this office by bringing in a professional, that is to make sure that we are in the best position moving forward, coming out of the worst crisis health-wise we've had in over 100 years.
Okay. Amy Lyon says role is way too large and literally covers all aspects of the mayor and city council roles.
I disagree. Thanks for the comment.
Okay. Bill Stout again says, why do we need a mayor and a city manager and an assistant?
The assistant is an established position for over 20 years that was removed by the previous mayor, and I am trying to reenact that position that other mayors have enjoyed, particularly at a time of crisis, so that Wichita can take its best path forward as we come out of this.
Greg Ferris, mayor makes nearly $100,000 per year. He should be able to do those jobs himself.
I wish I had the superpowers to do this job itself, but no mayor of every every top 50 city, besides us and Virginia Beach, has done that. So it's standard practice. I'm just trying to return to it in a public fashion. I will keep in mind for the people watching at home that this has never been up for a vote like this in at least the last 12 years. So this is what transparency looks like. I want to remain transparent, not just with this, but also by utilizing this position to continue the efforts with community engagement.
Bill Stout says, a new way to spend taxpayers' dollars. The mayor makes over $100,000 and needs someone else to do his job. Amy Lyon, and there it is. The crux of the matter is you need to bring in your campaign team. Bill Stout says, isn't it convenient that we are bringing up something like this now when people cannot be present to voice their opposition? None of you should be paid or creating new jobs and expenditures until such time as Wichitans are able to return to work. Amy Lyon says, no campaigning, but you desire someone with your campaign. Bill Stout, put this measure to a public vote. Rhonda Cox, so we are one of only two top 50 cities that don't have someone in this position. Why is Wichita always behind in everything? Amy Lyon, forget this and table this. Mayor has more knowledge on this than any other topic, specifically budget. Bill Stout, tell me again why we are hiring people when the entire city is closed and people can't pay their bills. Greg Ferris, I'm sorry. Many of those cities pay their mayors $20,000 to $40,000, so they don't make what the Wichita mayor makes. Also a bit of a misstatement, as many of those cities don't have a city manager. Amy Lyon. The people should have the right to weigh in to be heard. No vote now or vote no. Rhonda Cox. Not top 50 cities with a population of 380,000. Come on, compare apples to apples. Since when do the people have a say on city employees? Bill Stout. Current salary of the mayor is $108,000. Perhaps he should do the job he was elected to do rather than hire someone else or at our expense. Greg Ferris, check your facts. Oklahoma City doesn't pay their mayor $100,000. Bill Stout, the city manager, makes over $200,000. Double talk response. Rhonda Cox, yeah, their top city employees are very well paid.
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
We have a member who just jumped on here, I think, who would like to make a comment. Chair recognizes Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to add to the conversation, because there's about three voices that we keep hearing in this. On social media, I made this encouragement, and I want to make it again for anybody watching at home, that we consider what this means for the entire city and the future of the city, and not necessarily where we are right now. Is this a position that could help benefit the council and mayor now and in the future, or is this something that isn't necessary? And that's the conversation that I'm interested in hearing feedback on. A lot of this is not directed at that, and that's not a way to get, I think, the best information for the council to make an informed decision. So is this something that can help out and engage the community in different ways? The mayor's brought up our CSRs a couple times. Is this something similar? Is that something that can be a benefit? Those are the types of things that I'm hopeful to hear from the community. Thanks, Mayor.
Madam Clerk.
Do you want me to continue reading all the comments or just?
Just wanted to put it out there.
Okay, thank you.
Open the door.
Okay. Let's see. Rhonda Cox, yeah, their top employees are very well paid. Bill Stout, mayors have enjoyed. How about the people? How about the people can't enjoy anything right now, and you expect us to pay for you to have an assistant to enjoy? And Rhonda Cox, Oklahoma is not the norm and should not be you get what you pay for. Brock Booker, so let me get this straight. The previous got to appoint someone to this position with no council vote. Previous mayor, DeJuan Wash, will the position have any direct reports in interfacing with department heads? Will the person have influence over the decisions? Will the city charter need to be changed for this role?
No.
Okay. Donna Worth, explain the research this position will do versus you as mayor.
Okay, I mean, I'll briefly answer that question, and then I see the vice mayor has asked for the floor. The position of mayor, I think it's well stated, this is a position to support that so that the mayor is better equipped to make decisions on behalf of the citizens. Chair recognizes Vice Mayor Claycomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I know you answered the question on whether our charter would have to be changed, but I would like, at some point, legal guidance on that. So I don't need it right now, but at some point.
Let's, since it was a question that was up in the online forum, let's ask legal counsel to reinstate positions such as the assistant to the mayor and council, but through the job description in which I imposed, would we actually need a change of charter?
Mayor, Council, Jennifer McGowan, City Attorney. That's a rather somewhat of a complex question in that it brings in state law, city ordinances. City ordinance currently requires that the city staffing positions are created by acts of council, and that with the exception of municipal judges, all employees report directly to, can be hired and fired by solely the city manager. The city manager has sole discretion to hire and fire all city employees with the exception of city municipal court judges.
So would a clarification in this, in my proposal stating that that is the case here, and if that amendment was accepted, would we need any change in the charter to move forward?
When you say charter, I'm not sure what you're talking about, but the change that I'm hearing that
the document in which presented, if we made it clear that this person would be under the sole discretion for hiring, firing through the city manager, as you stated, a requirement in order to stay within our charter, if that change was made today on the documentation before moving forward, then we would be within the charter. Is that correct?
to comply with current state law, I believe a charter ordinance would be required to charter out of state statute. In 2015, the legislature enacted Chapter 12, Section, an enactment that talked about manager form of government. When you talk about the city charter, there was a 1917 ordinance, if that's what you're talking about. That's not a city charter, but there are city ordinances that currently comply with state statute. If you are talking about changing those city ordinances with regard to the manager's authority to hire and fire employees, we would need a charter ordinance, in my opinion, to comply with state law.
So I apologize if I was confusing in the way I asked my question. My understanding is the vice mayor asked, does the current layout where it's a job description that says the employee falls under the same city policy for conduct and expectations as other employees, where this employee would fall under the same employee guidelines according to the intent of this document of every other employee in this building. I think the question was, or the way you answered it, where, well, the manager is in charge of employees. If we were to add that more explicitly into this, if it above and beyond that falls under the same policy as every other employee, if this is a city employee position, are we then within the boundaries of our charter? Is the council able to create a position now that reinstates a version of a position that has been here for over 20 years? It just makes sure it's underneath the city manager. If we do that, we are within the charter. Is that it? Is that correct?
This would have to be, of course, in the subject to the review of law. It would need to be created by council, and subject to sole hiring, firing, and disciplinary authority by the city manager to comply with state statute and city ordinance, in my opinion.
Okay, well, I will just disclose to the council that I did accept 4 amendments from the manager when reviewing this document. In my understanding, I think it was a joint understanding that this is in accordance with the charter, and I have no problem adding amendments to tighten that up to make sure that this is indeed in accordance with the charter. Vice Mayor Claycomb.
Yes, Mayor, I wanted just to clarify what I was asking, and I think, thank you, Council, I think that you answered this, but the proposal, as I read it, puts the mayor in charge of hiring, performance appraisals, and ethics evaluations, the way it's written now. And I think that was my question, is that process as proposed would be outside of our, I don't want to say, our written ordinances.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So then you would be suggesting that that would have to be, and just to clarify the accuracy of your previous comment, the mayor is not in charge. The mayor sits on the same board or the same committee. So in the context of what's written, where the mayor would just be in the committee, is that a violation?
From what is written on this paper, it does not appear clear to me that it is consistent with the city ordinance or state law from the way this is written.
Non-consistent with it. So that would have to be changed.
That is my opinion at this time, and I can fully research that to a fuller extent if you would like.
Okay. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. My questioning follows along the same lines as Vice Mayor, because the way I read this is a new position because we already have staff filling the role of communications and special events manager. So this reads as a new body added to that mix, because the way I understand our staffing levels now is we are at full staff in those positions. So, and asking the question, does this require a change to the charter because it'd be a new position reporting to this committee and not the city manager? That's where I see conflict.
So, Mr. Manager, can you clarify the purpose for this? And you read it and went through it, and you and I apparently were on the same mind that this wouldn't be a conflict. And we can go back to the old one. I in fact presented 2 documents. One was to just reinstate the old position, and one was this, and asked you to help me pick out which one you thought was good moving forward. Your comment to me was this was more clear on what my intent was, but I have no problem going back to the other one. With that said, the previous position that I'm trying to fill the gap for was the make sure I have all my fact sheet. Was the executive assistant to the mayor and city council. Is that correct?
Mayor, that is correct. That was the position prior to the current position that has an incumbent in it. Yes.
Has this position been the executive assistant to the mayor and city council? Was that here when you came here?
That position was here, yes.
What year did you come?
2009.
So in 2009, so at least 11 years we've had, or since 2009, 11 years ago, we had the executive assistant to the mayor and city council. So it's safe to say that the concept isn't new.
I think that you've broadened the powers of that position, but in terms of the title and some of the responsibilities, yes, that position's been.
My intent is not to broaden the powers, it's to broaden the responsibilities of the position. So tell me about what happened when that position was replaced with the communications and event coordinator position, because they sound very different, where a communications and event coordinator position seems to be a position that fall under the Department of Communications, while an executive assistant to the mayor and city council seems like a position that has traditionally been established to serve in a council office. So to get to the council member Fry's question, or I think concern that he brought up, in which the communications and event coordinator is also the executive assistant to the mayor and city council. Can you tell me, before I was here, the relationship with those two positions, because they do seem unique?
Sure. When that position was filled, we actually had a person who was in the previous position who expressed an interest in leaving that department and starting a career in another department. And so that created a vacancy in the position. Council had been expressing concerns, the mayor and council, about our communications efforts and whether or not we needed to beef that up, especially our presence in social media. So what we did is we revised the job description and then recruited for that vacant position.
So in an attempt to increase what was, the current mayor came in, saw a new need for the position, similar to like I see a new need as far as community outreach, and reformulated the existing position to fit that need, similar to what I am trying to do currently. Is that a fair statement?
Right, and it was done in consultation with the council because it was a priority of both the mayor and the council.
Did it have to come up for a vote like this?
No, because we had a vacancy and we just did a reclassification of the position.
So reclassification of the position, was able to utilize the standing budget item, and even though it's a different position.
Correct.
So just with the future of this position, communications event planner, just I think March 16th, maybe March 20th, we began the employment of a new director of communications who now oversees the communication and event coordinator position. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So if that's correct, then that position is still being paid out of the council budget, but it is being managed out of the person who is over the communications. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's actually a little too simple in terms of that responsibility, the responsibility of that position. That position performs a number of duties, some in service to the mayor and council, and then some in service to the broader organization in terms of communication. We could have that position report to a number of people because she's actually asked to wear multiple hats.
Okay, because I was instructed to communicate with the director of communications if I had any requests or asks of her. Is that standard protocol if she is also reporting to the mayor and city council?
I wasn't aware of that request.
Okay. In the future, do you believe, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but do you believe that this position, communications and event coordinator, might actually eventually fall under the communications department? Or should it forever be under the council department?
A good question. The council's asked me to look at that and look at a broader reorganization of our customer service staff as well as our communication staff and see if we can't link them better.
I would also ask for some type of linkage with that. It might have saved me the last hour here. Yeah. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is somewhat off topic, but is there, this question's to Jennifer. So on the comments on social media, it was recommended that we read everything in its entirety, but a lot of this is back and forth amongst citizens and not necessarily questions towards the council. So would we still need to read everything, or is there a way to maybe just read the questions that come to the council about this particular item?
In the guidance we received from the Kansas Attorney General to make meetings during this time where we're not able to have public, there was guidance to be as inclusive and transparent as possible. There is not clear regulation as to what comments from the public should be included or not. In an abundance of caution, and my opinion is that we should include all comments as part of the record with an encouragement that, as we would for any other meeting, comments stay on topic and be directed to the topic at hand. I don't believe we have the ability at this point, unless they're very clearly misdirected, to avoid those.
Is it possible, well, first, thank you. Is it possible to maybe get guidance for the future, since this is kind of a new normal, on how to handle that? Because I really just think a lot of this being said in the back and forth amongst three people, because I just pulled it up, I don't see the benefit in the council meeting. It's something that we wouldn't allow if they were at the podium. So
we are in new territory here, and we can evaluate that and give guidance going forward. Be happy to do that.
thank you.
Yeah, because
Councilmember Tuttle.
I don't even have access right now. You guys are looking at it
was gonna
real
say,
time, and I don't.
We can't even.
So that's not even fair to all of us on the council.
If you would like, Councilmember, we could recess and I could allow you to go get your laptop. Would that be appropriate? Recess for 5 minutes so that council members sitting in front can gain access to their laptops.
How many more comments do we see?
I have 2 people on the list to speak. I'll make a closing argument if that list doesn't grow, and it sounds like, according to Councilmember Johnson, it might be a lot of comments.
There's a lot. From where we stopped there, well, I'm not counting, but it's probably at least 30 new comments. So, and a lot of that is back and forth amongst citizens and not directed to the council.
A lot of it is back and forth conversation, but I think we're probably more than halfway through.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I have a few questions for the city manager. So, Mr. Layton, is this a new position that is this position currently on the staffing table at all?
No, it is not.
Okay.
We don't have a vacancy at this time.
Okay. Is there budget right now for this position? Is this budgeted for right now in fiscal year 20?
No, not this specific position
Okay.
in the mayor and council budget.
So if we know right now we're in a budget shortfall and we're having a budget retreat after this, $8 to $10 million. So we are not in a position to generate new revenue. So if we are going to fund this, then we have to cut something else and most likely other staff, correct?
That's correct, or take advantage of salary savings from open positions, vacant positions.
Okay, so other departments could essentially suffer if we allow this position to be created. That's editorialized, yeah, sorry. So are we in a hiring freeze right now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, and did we ask you as part of your work plan for this year to conduct a staffing study of communications and community service to see if there's opportunities for duties to be shifted so that council and mayor can be better served with our needs?
Yes, you did, and that's what I referenced to the mayor.
Okay, and so that is to be completed by June 30th, give or take, with the current
correct.
environment that we are. Also, are contracted employees usually allowed to have benefits?
I've got, I think Chris Bezruki is available to answer that question.
Welcome.
We currently do not have contract employees that receive any benefits like that, especially health insurance.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I had one more, but I think that's it for now, but I'll have more. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
So I got a question of staff to follow up on that. Our contracted employee, such as the manager, does he have benefits?
Chris?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't hear the question.
Chris, I'm wondering about our contracted employee who currently serves the council. Does that member have benefits? Your previous statement used that contracted employees don't have benefits. So I'm just asking if the council's contracted employee, does that person have benefits?
Under the city manager's contract, I believe he does.
So contracted employees do have benefits. Or at least one, this wouldn't be an entirely foreign concept.
I could understand what you're saying.
Thank you. Also, Mr. Manager, for the budget shortfalls, has the situation since we last spoke in our public budget committee meeting with the $5 to $10 million forecast for shortfalls, has that changed at all since today's budget meeting that we're about to head into?
Mayor, no, $8 to $10 million is what we're looking at in the general fund.
Has there been any analysis of the stimulus package that came from the federal government that could possibly change that $8 to $10 million that you're currently citing?
We've spent a significant amount of time on that, Mayor, and you and I have discussed that. I've discussed it with council members. It's really uncertain right now what, if any, assistance we're going to get from the previous stimulus bill. The question is what's going to happen in the future. County is receiving funds that could be allocated to cities throughout Sedgwick County. Haven't determined yet what that would be, what that formula would be for distribution, and probably more importantly, there's significant limitations today on how those funds could be used. So right now, we're only able to use them for expenses that we can justify as COVID-related. And they specifically won't allow us to use it for revenue shortfalls. So that's something we're working with our federal delegation on trying to get changed.
And you recall our email on Friday, March 20th at 4:07 p.m. when you discussed the hiring freezes, and the response was, I support the language so long as an understanding that council and mayor staff is essential, particularly during these tough times. Do you recall that email?
I think that was your statement?
Yes.
Yes, I think I do remember that.
Do you recall if anyone pushed back or if yourself pushed back on that statement?
I don't recall responding, Mayor.
Very good. Madam Clerk, what does the internet say?
Ted Bush, this position is needed and separates the elected officials from the hired positions. It is transparency and it is accountability to those who vote. Esau Freeman, I want to give a shout out to all the essential city employees. Thank you for keeping the city running. Remember how important clean drinking water and there is working sewer is much appreciated. Ted Bush, it's unbelievable that the city manager has an assistant, but the mayor does not. The mayor needs tools to do the job he was elected to do. Amy Lyon, why do we keep wanting to use this person for transparency? That's stating that mayor and not one council member can be trusted. Esau Freeman, many of the essential city employees would like to know about hazard pay. Is anyone willing to make a motion about that? Amy Lyon, these questions you raise are far more important than this ridiculous conversation. Bill Stout, still avoiding the question as to why we are spending money on hiring someone to assist the mayor while the city of Wichita is closed and the people are out of work. Ted Bush, the city of Wichita is closed because the governor closed it. Bill Stout, are any of you willing to forego your salary until such time as the people you represent are able to return to work? Amy Lyon, further policy research is why you have this wonderful legal advice you're hearing now. Christy Benton, it's embarrassing that our city council is discussing hiring a $70,000 annual employee when so many cities are furloughed and can't pay their bills. Isn't there more important business to discuss? Ted Bush, that was a state order to close the city, not a city order. Donna Worth, I still do not understand the difference between the research the mayor does to learn about the duties, needs within the city departments with the budget, etc., versus what done by this new person. B. Garten, people who voted for Lindy Wells are seeing the results of that vote. Bill Stout, these are our elected local officials. Shouldn't they be showing compassion and stand in solidarity with the people of this community? B. Garten, what does the city charter and election rules say about recalling a mayor? Ted Bush, because all information the mayor gets is filtered through the city manager's office, and sometimes the city manager is at odds with the mayor. Aaron Walker, one problem is that reinstating the old position implies the communications event position would then be eliminated. I think that was part of the question just posed. Donna Worth, so will the new person end up schooling the mayor on subjects we expect the mayor to be learning on his own? Greg Ferris, pretty simple. Take the current position and make it be as it was. B. Garten, he is not prepared and bumbling every time he makes a statement and exudes no confidence in me for his abilities. Susie Cunningham, in many decisions, the council references sister cities as an example on which to form policy. Who are our sister cities, and do they have a position focused on research policies such as deputy mayor? Amy Lyon, he is not prepared, and why aren't we talking about cut? City employees, the pandemic mask for everyone. Esau Freeman, God bless the city workers keeping your city running smoothly. Big thank you to all the employees who make less than $30,000 a year and have been showing up to work every day. My heroes. Ted Bush, what you're seeing here is the city manager and many of the city council doesn't care that the majority of Wichita votes for Whipple. The city manager runs the city, not voters. B. Garten, the majority of those who voted for someone other than Whipple, actually. He was elected with a plurality. What does the city charter and election rules say about recalling a mayor? Ted Bush, that's a slick and dishonest way of saying the candidate you voted for lost. He won the election. Bill Stout, not Ted. What you're seeing is the mayor is trying to spend $70,000 a year to hire someone with our money while the people of Wichita are out of work and struggling.
Comments need to be read into the record before we can move forward. My intent at this point, because as mentioned, this document was ready prime time for the whole weekend. It appears it does need more adjusting. I will be motioning to table this till the next public meeting in which people can be here. Does that motion cut off debate from the public, I think, is the question for the parliamentarian. Should we continue to read the list, or if I was to make this motion, is that a primary motion?
It's my belief that the comments that have already been made should be read in the record. At this point, a motion and action then would cut off further comments.
And therefore be unjustified.
And therefore what? Excuse me?
And therefore the motion would be unjustifiable if it cuts off further comments. Do we want it to cut? Do the further comments take precedence over the motion to table?
You can make a motion at any time that you deem it appropriate.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess two things. If we're looking at getting a legal opinion from the Attorney General's office, is there a way to add that to the beginning of our meetings, kind of how that welcome video is, but we'll take a specific question from a individual and encourage them to type that question out, and then that way we see the name, the question, and then we can respond to it. But we'd give proper notification before the meeting starts that that's what we're looking at, rather than reading into the record the back and forth between citizens. And then the second thing is if there are legal issues with what the mayor has proposed, if the mayor's going to make a motion, or maybe that's a conversation to the mayor, if we're going to make a motion to table it, can we get those modifications made so that when this comes back up, it's a document that, I guess, checks all the legal things? I don't know if I said that right, but.
I respond, it's my recommendation that we take a review of what has been discussed and issue a comprehensive legal analysis at this point.
And Councilmember, are you done with the floor? And my intent is to do the right thing moving forward. As mentioned, every mayor that I researched for the past 12 years, it seemed coincidental that a person who they had previous experience with also got the assistant position or the equivalent. I wanted to find a way to allow that process to come to light. And perhaps exercising the document, maybe the mayor doesn't have a vote, maybe there's a way we can do this moving forward, I think would be meet my intent while also ensuring that we fall under the right guidelines for the members here who have expressed concerns about those guidelines. So with that, I will make a motion to table item. Make sure I make my right motion. The item that falls under council member agenda, consideration of the deputy of mayor, and I would like this to be put on the agenda for the next public meeting in which the public can attend. At this point, we're unsure if that will be the second meeting of May or later. It depends on what our friends over at the county do. So I would like that noted that it's not a direct date. It would be the next time that we can have a meeting in which the public can attend and make sure that their voices are heard and that this is done in a most transparent fashion. Is there a second?
I will second that, but if I could offer a friendly amendment, maybe just say the next in-person council meeting.
Is that the easiest way to say it?
Yeah.
As you can tell from my document, and sometimes I don't get to point A to point B the most, I guess, clear way. So the chair will accept that as, or maker of the motion will accept that as a friendly amendment. And also to speak on the amendment, the chair recognizes Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Again, I understand we want to move this on. I don't want to drag this out anymore, but I do want to be respectful to two of our colleagues that do not have access to the computers, that do not have access to the public comments, that maybe we don't have the procedure quite right, but I just want to make sure we all have the same transparency here. So a little bit gun shy of moving on without making sure they all have the same information. And then I think we probably need to take the opportunity to look at the comments on the new motion, or would we not? Or I guess normally we wouldn't go out to the public on that. I just want to make sure we're following our practice.
And the benefit of tabling this until the next meeting will allow us, I think, to go and gain more public communication with the public. One of the things I've discovered for over, I think, 300 comments on Councilmember Johnson's Facebook feed is there's some miscommunication on what the intent here is, and some information going back and forth, I think, brings people to an understanding of what the intent of this is. So I think that public comment is always necessary, and my hope to table this and bring it up later will allow for that, not only online, but also in person. Vice Mayor Claycomb.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I struggle with this just a little bit because we already have an action plan for the city manager to, as we talked about earlier, to conduct a comprehensive organizational analysis of our communications department, our community services department, including the city council office staff. That's due to us June 30th. My understanding, and manager, you can correct me if I misinterpreted this, but I think that you offered temporary assistance with a minor reorganization to assist the mayor until this comprehensive analysis could be completed, and he declined that.
I would be interested in that question too.
Yeah. We talked, Councilmember, Mayor, we've talked about alternatives in terms of moving a staff member or using the existing staff member, and our conversation has been that that was not what the mayor wanted to accomplish. And I think that's a fair assessment of where we've been.
So thank you. So I struggle with this a little bit. Even tabling it, the comment was made that this hasn't come up for a vote, something like this, in the past, and that's because former mayors weren't trying to go outside the current form of government. The one time in my research where a mayor went outside the current form of government, it actually did come to a vote like this. So I don't know. I'm struggling with tabling it a little bit.
And I do want to clarify, we're tabling it to ensure that the document stays within the boundaries of our current form of government, given the comments that the vice mayor has echoed. My thought coming today with this proposal, since as it was being worked on, not only had the help of other council members, but of staff and of the manager, was that it fell within those boundaries. So the goal is to table this to ensure, without any reasonable doubt, that it does fall within that, and make sure that as we move forward, we reinstate a position that has either itself been in place or the equivalence has been in place for at least 20 years. So it has precedence. Other Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. So if I understand right, the motion that's on the table right now is to delay it until a first public agenda opportunity.
Yep, that's correct.
And we've also discussed the idea of, well, the action plan that we have with the city manager to review staffing as it relates to our communications team, our community service representatives, et cetera. So because we're still waiting on that, and we still don't know when the public agenda opportunity might be, it makes sense to delay it at least until that staffing study is complete, so that way we can review all of the information, including all of the staff positions. So I would ask for a friendly amendment to the motion to delay it until the staffing study is complete and presented to council.
Rise for primary inquiry. Can a substitute motion have an additional substitute motion amended into it?
Mayor, Council, there's not been a substitute motion. There is one motion and a second. If someone would like to
So that would be my substitute
make
motion.
a substitute motion, you can, or if the mayor chooses to accept a friendly amendment, that would remove the need for a substitute motion. It's one of those two options.
Okay.
My understanding is that the council member from District 1 created a alternative motion in which the maker of the motion accepted. Do you recall?
I believe that the friendly amendment was, maybe the clerk can read it back, but it was just simply a friendly amendment, not a substitute.
Correct.
And what is the, you're correct, but could you, for academic purposes, tell us the difference?
Pushing it back until after the, to adjust his timeline in his motion from first available public meeting opportunity to at such point in time the manager is able to present the staffing study results to us, which is June 30th, right?
Yeah, I was just asking legal for an amendment to the motion by Councilmember Johnson. How is that different than a substitute motion by Councilmember Fry?
A substitute motion can be taken up immediately before the underlying original motion is made.
So it's in order, even if there was a substitute to the original motion or an amendment to the original motion, that motion has been altered once, it can be altered again by another member with a substitute motion.
A substitute motion is a standalone motion. It's not an alteration of the first motion.
Excellent, thank you.
I don't know if that clarifies. I can read from the.
That actually clarifies it. That was good. I just legitimately confused and want to make sure moving forward that we are doing this in the proper. So with that motion, I believe it was looking to get seconded.
Second.
This motion is made, a substitute motion is made to delay the assistance or anything equivalent to an executive assistant to the mayor and council until June. Is that correct?
End of June 30th.
End of June
And when the staffing study is complete and presented to the mayor and council.
And Mr. Manager, my understanding is, I thought that was suspended, that wasn't suspended in our last meeting when through the revisions of the expectations moving forward. I thought there was discussion that was suspended and that many of those were met. Or is that still, is the staffing analysis that you're going to do 2 months from now, is that still on target?
Mayor, my understanding was there was one project that was being suspended in terms of time frame. I had one item to get completed by the end of March, if I remember correctly, and that was the project that was suspended. I had met several others that had earlier dates prior to COVID-19, and then I have the staffing study, which comes a little later.
So the staffing study comes later, it is due by June 30th, and the motion on the table right now that's been seconded is to suspend talks of a full-time assistant to help out with the mayor and the council until the conclusion of that study, but it'll be no later than the 30th. Is that accurate?
Suspend talks on this action that's being requested rather than whether or not a full-time assistant, because I believe we have that staff already in place. So just to be clear, I'm saying suspend talk on this request action until such time as we have the staffing study complete and presented to council by June 30th.
So the second, thank you. So the follow-up to that is your motion doesn't actually conclude that during that staffing study, there will be an analysis of the need of this position, because in your analysis, the director of communication and events already fulfills the executive assistant of the mayor and council position. Or on the 30th, will we get a analysis from staff that shows if this position is needed going forward?
I would hope that the analysis that we get by the 30th demonstrates staffing for mayor and council and justified needs for those positions to best serve us going forward.
Okay, so the second thing you said was an opinion. Okay, it wasn't a direction to the staff then.
I didn't think you asked for a direction to staff. I was just clarifying my position.
Your position. Excellent. Well, I just want to make sure that the motion is that when we come back on the 30th and we have the report, that it's clear that this position will be part of that explored when we do a staffing analysis, just in case that my 4 months of experience here is wrong, and we actually don't need to go back to 20 years of precedence in which the mayor actually needs professional help to fulfill these duties.
Again, to clarify, I believe we have the position, you're just not utilizing the position to best suit the needs of the office. It's pretty clear by the job description that it's very supportive of the mayor and the council office.
Thank you for your opinion. Councilmember Clendenin.
Well, I think we did get some clarity here, but Mr. Manager, in your comprehensive analysis in the staffing study, we'll just ask you directly, are you considering the assistant to the mayor and our CSR positions and how they are going to fit in the future?
I think the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
The instruction I had from the council to see how to best utilize staff in order to serve the current needs of the mayor and council, both in terms of day-to-day staffing and communications. And is there a better way to do it than the current model? That's what I've been asked to look at.
And and the whole point is not just to serve us, but it helps us serve the community, obviously.
I think there's been a lot of discussion about outward facing.
Just in my short 8 years on this bench, I will just say that as we're looking at this position and we're looking at our community services representatives' positions in conjunction with the rest of the organization of City Hall, it really is probably the best thing to do as policymakers, look at everything holistically and make sure that we are analyzing everything as they are interconnected, because we are all interconnected in everything we do. And so I just want to make sure as we go forward that staffing study really is looking at this, at that. I know that we've discussed this before, but I think it's important for the public to know that the discussion that we've had previously is just in a way to better serve the public, to be more transparent, to allow us to work better together with the mayor's position. It's just a few comments as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to all the debate back and forth. We have an amazing opportunity right now to make sure that we're serving the public even better in the future. And I know that this whole council has that heart as they serve the city moving forward. So I look forward to seeing what comes out of that staffing study. Thanks.
Councilmember for District 3 better articulates my concerns as well, that this will be looked at holistically with this plan included, despite some opinions who might believe that this is unnecessary no matter what going forward. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I'm probably going to muddy the water a little bit more. I completely agree with waiting until after the staffing study, but my other concern that I mentioned previously and just wanted to reiterate is we are in a hiring freeze right now. And it would be almost impossible for me to add a position to our staffing table when we are not allowing other staff to be hired to fill positions that already exist. And one of the things that I've done in the last week is I've reached out to non-for-profits, businesses, institutions of higher learning, as well as other municipalities, and I asked them the same question: are you hiring anyone right now? And specifically, are you creating new positions? And unequivocally, everyone said no. And so I think the optics of us adding a position when we don't know if we need it and we don't know how we're going to pay for it, when we have a hiring freeze, would communicate to our constituents and to the community and to our partners and stakeholders that we're doing something that different than everybody else is doing. Everyone else in the community, our state, our nation, and the world right now is really considering how they can best utilize resources, conserve resources. The goal would be to bring everyone back from the furlough and to be able to, at the appropriate point, lift the hiring freeze. So I just want to make sure that we consider that, because even if after the staffing study we look at this, if we're still in a hiring freeze, it's a moot point. The position could be created, but we wouldn't be able to pay for it. So I just want to make sure that's part of the discussion and on public record.
Councilmember Blubach.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read some comments that were sent to me by former Councilmember Paul Gray that served on this bench for 8 years, and his comments were basically, the mayor's a position that is a leader amongst equals, and it is not and has never been an executive position and should not become one now. Perhaps more focus should be put on the position at hand and not a way to pass off work to any unnecessary party. The only reason I bring that up is because I want to have connectivity with Councilmember Clendenin's opinion as well, that says that this should be a holistic decision, and to make sure that we all have the resources to do our job appropriately. So, thank you.
And I'll just add that I also have been in discussions online with the honorable former council member, and he also has recognized that during his tenure, he has served with an executive assistant to the mayor and city council. I think that there was some miscommunication from our friend and former colleague on what the intent of this is. And we don't have any, the motion's on the table and seconded, we don't have any speakers, so I'm just going to close this out. I'm in support of waiting until that study is concluded. Every day when I talk to the manager and ask for a path forward with this, and it's my fault, I didn't think that this could be part of that holistic study. I thought that moving forward, this is the only path I had. So I am okay going another 2 months, without the same type of help that other mayors have had at this time, so long as this will be analyzed, and I think it's a smart way going forward. So in short, I do accept the amendment. During this trying time, I'm okay with toughening it out, and hopefully we can get to the point to echo what the good council person from District 3 said, a holistic view on how we can be assisted to serve the public better. I think that is everyone's goal, and that's certainly my underlying goal in this. And now we have 3 other people on the docket. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I just want to add to the discussion, just to make it clear in my understanding and also for the community who may be listening today, that when we do the staffing study, it's to look at what we have and to see if there's opportunities for realignment, to be able to better utilize the staff and the positions that we have. The end is not just to add a position. The end is to see how we can best use the pieces and the people that we already have. So I don't think it's anyone's expectation of how it's going to look until we take a view of what we have. So just want to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page of the staffing study does not mean that this position is automatic. It just means we're going to look at what we have and see what we need and what the gaps are, and then fill those gaps as needed.
Mr. Manager, is there a description of the goals and outcomes of the staffing study that you could distribute to us so that we can refer to it to ensure that we're all on the same page moving forward?
Mayor, I can give you what you gave me as part of my review in terms of what that, I think it's a short paragraph.
Okay, and it was just my understanding is it was to initiate a staffing study. I would like to know details about what that study looks like moving forward. Once those details come out of what are you studying, what are the variables, can we get because my understanding is the review part that you just cited, that was directing the initiative for the study. The study, of course, is beyond a paragraph. So once we get to, the nuts and bolts, if I could, and council could get a copy of what that study is looking or seeking to find and the mechanisms for that. I think
More than happy to provide an outline of what it is we're going to be looking at.
Thank you.
Sure.
Vice Mayor Claycomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to thank my colleagues for all recognizing that we are here to serve our constituents. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we were all trying to do to the best of our knowledge and to the best of our abilities. I do want to make it clear that in the interim, before the comprehensive study is done, that the mayor does have support. If you look at the communications and special events manager position, it says performs professional and confidential work for the mayor. Primary emphasis is on relieving the mayor of routine tasks and administrative functions. The position is usually the initial point of contact for the mayor. It does have support for city council also, but I don't want the citizens of Wichita to think that the mayor's not being supported out of our office. We have professional staff that work in our office to support the mayor, and as I mentioned earlier, the manager has offered additional temporary support. So again, I just don't want our constituents to think that we are not supporting them and doing their work during this time of the study.
Mr. Manager, is that additional temporary support still on the table? I was unaware that it was available.
Yeah, we've had a staff member, Mayor, we can talk offline, but yes, we've had a staff member that we've made available to you on occasion, and we can make that a little more permanent arrangement during this interim.
Excellent. I would love to hear the details of that.
Great.
And just for clarification of the Vice Mayor's comments, reading the the original document from Human Resources on the communications and special events manager's position, that they staff the mayor, given the updated realities that we now have a director of communications who has instructed me to no longer ask her for tasks, but to ask him for those tasks. Am I to ask him for the tasks that I expect out of her to help assist the mayor moving forward?
Again, Mayor, we can talk offline, but you have the right to request that information directly in terms of what you need to service you. If it's a bigger project that can be done through that office, then obviously the Director of Communications can help.
Okay, excellent. Just want to make sure that the Vice Mayor's comments were still relevant to today's current situation, since I think we hired someone about 2 weeks ago who now oversees that person. Any other comments on the said motion? And actually, I will defer to the maker of the motion to close on his motion. You can sum it up better than I can.
Yeah, and I have to ask the clerk to read it, because it's been such a long time ago.
From what I understand, the substitute motion made by Councilmember Fry and seconded by the Vice Mayor is to suspend talks on this action until the completion of the staffing study is done and no later than June 30th. Kind of.
Done and presented to council and mayor by June 30th.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so the motion has been thoroughly debated and has been closed on. Members, if there's no one else jumping on this list to beat this horse to death even more, we will cast our votes. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
City Council member appointments and comments.
Are there appointments to city boards or other appointments by council members? The chair recognizes the Honorable Councilmember Tuttle.
I have a comment, not an appointment. Is it okay to proceed?
The floor is yours.
Thank you. I have some good news during these days where we're not hearing a lot of good news, again, in our community, our state, our nation, and our world. But I was able to reach out to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas and ask them if we might get some assistance. We have vulnerable populations, of course, throughout our entire community, but through working with the fantastic Director of Housing and our awesome Director of Transit, we made a proposal to Blue Cross and Blue Shield that they will be providing weekly deliveries of food for our senior towers. So we have 186 residents who will receive food once a week. And the Director of Housing, Sally, did a fantastic job because it wasn't easy to find a supplier these days to be able to get food. And so we also wanted to ensure that the food is as healthy as it can be. So they're going to be getting some lean protein, some canned fruits and vegetables, fresh produce, things that they can use, and already have probably experience with cooking, but is also healthy. So this was just a fantastic opportunity to serve some of our most vulnerable, especially when we have a stay-at-home order, and even after it's lifted, we don't want our seniors to get out and to be exposed to this pandemic. And so just a real big thanks to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, and then also our Director of Housing and our Director of Transit for working together to make this come to fruition.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had two things. One, I wanted to echo the Vice Mayor earlier. Appreciate the dialogue from everyone, always on every topic, but also today. It was a good deep dive and discussion about this. And then two, just for the public, I want to remind everybody that Friday at 3 o'clock, we will have a call with Senator Moran's office, Secretary of Commerce David Toland's office, as well as Wayne Bell with the SBA, in a conversation to help out small businesses here in Wichita. So if folks have questions, comments, or concerns, really interested in hearing about hurdles of navigating federal funding efforts, that's valuable information for Senator Moran as they in Congress discuss the next round of stimulus. So maybe removing some hurdles for small businesses would be a benefit. So I just want to encourage everybody tuning in to join in that discussion. It's on the City of Wichita Facebook and other media outlets from there. And again, we're taking questions, comments, and concerns now so we could submit that so they can be a valuable call on Friday at 3 o'clock. And just want to call attention to that because it's it's a real need, and I've heard from a lot of small businesses worried about funding. Thanks, Mayor.
Of course. Other comments or appointments? See, none, guys, I really do appreciate the discussion on this. I feel this has been something I've been trying to work on, and I feel like having this part of the study brings us a little bit further along, and I look forward to revisiting this topic and also having it be in a global picture on how we can serve our community better. That is one value we do all share. With that, I'll make a motion to adjourn if it's a second.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we have a motion for an executive session requested.
We do, don't we? This just keeps going. Let me find that. All right, cool. It's the blue one, right? Okay. Just when you thought it was over, I would like to request an executive session for the City Council meeting being held on April 21st, 2020. The motion reads as follows. I move that the City Council recess into executive session for 15 minutes to receive information on negotiations of settlement of a potential claim for insurance proceeds pursuant to KSA 754319B2 for legal consideration with the city attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, marked client settlement. The executive session is required to protect attorney-client privilege to the public interest. And I think we need, what is the recommended time needed?
It's 15 minutes, so.
So we will, the 15 minutes executive session will start at 12:15. That's my motion.
You mean 11:15?
And by 12, I mean 11:15. Yes. Feel a little punch drunk today, so bear with me. 11:15 that will give us about a good 5 minutes to get over there. Is there a second to the motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may clarify the motion to then state that the executive session would end at 11:30 and will be held in the boardroom. You'll return to the council chambers after the executive session.
The executive session will conclude at 11:30, and we will return to the council chambers after returning from the boardroom in which the executive session will be held. Any follow-up?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I have another item just for your consideration. I don't think I need a vote on it, but if we could talk about it before you go into executive session, it's related to next Tuesday's council meeting.
I'm amazed sometimes what we need to vote on, but yes, the floor is yours. There is a motion on the table, however. Can I have the manager speak to a secondary item?
You may.
Manager, the floor is yours.
Mayor, staff brought to my attention that we have a consent agenda next week, and we are not going to do a workshop afterwards, so it's really a short meeting. Would you prefer to do that on Microsoft Teams instead of having the meeting here? It's your call, but I needed your thoughts before we established it, because we need to give public notice out as that we're going to do it in a little different way.
I have a question.
What is the will of the body? Vice Mayor Claycomb.
Thank you. Is there no workshop afterward? No, I'm sorry, no retreat either?
Retreat is the following day on your
The
calendar
following
on
day
the
on
29th.
Wednesday?
And
So
we
there's
are
no-
planning on doing that.
Okay,
on the
but
29th.
that day, there's no follow-up meeting for the council? There won't be any meeting except the consent agenda?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Fry.
Okay, I thought there was some discussion about a workshop on revising the incentive policy.
That's the 29th.
It's Wednesday.
Instead of doing that as a budget retreat, we're going to do it as an economic development retreat.
Got it,
I'm
thank
still
you.
circling back with all of you to confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other comments to determine the wisdom of the body? I see no
Electronic, you prefer,
conflicts.
you be all right with an electronic meeting for next Tuesday?
Is there any objection to electronic meeding? See none, I think.
Okay,
it's
that's what I
good.
needed. Thank you.
So motion has been made and seconded to recess into executive session. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their votes.
Second. Was there a second?
I believe there's a second by the Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Councilmember Blueball, would you cast your vote, please? Thank you.
All right, so with 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass, and we are in executive session at 11:15.